Hello everybody, I'm with Darrell Miller and Laurent Villeneuve from JavaScript Montreal. And Darrell, we just did yesterday a talk about Microsoft's beginning serious about HTTP. And I thought it would be interesting to have some kind of strong discussion about the patterns of the single user interface and being generated by JavaScript. And Darrell, who's experienced with using the Hypermedia to provide the interface. So I'd like you to state your opinion on the matter, and we'll see the argumentation about it.
Okay. Would you like me to start?
Yes.
So I guess my fear is the a heavy use of JavaScript within a web browser application can lead people to start to lose or throw away some of the rules of the web. We've seen a couple of examples of it recently with New Twitter and Gawker, where they started to use a single page interface, where in the case of Gawker they had a site crash or they had a problem with the JavaScript on a page, and all of a sudden nobody could get access to any other site. There's been issues where people have had links, people have used Gawker to link to other articles, and people looking in their logs and they're not seeing where they're coming on the Gawker site because you're losing that identification of resources, because the URI does not specifically refer to exactly what the person is looking at in the JavaScript application. And there are a number of other areas that I just feel that where the JavaScript in the browser is moving back to the old kind of client server, the way we used to build desktop applications, which is a little ironic because I've been moving the other way from using desktop applications in a more web architectural style. And those are just my concerns as to where the direction is headed.
So I think we could sum it up as what you see at this way, and then we can talk about what you think should be achieved.
Well, I think you know, the container, the web container, wasn't originally intended to build those apps. Yes. Now it's evolving with HTML5, ECMAScript 5 that are coming out, new CSS transform and everything. We're seeing more and more platform where it's actually in use, where HTML is a very successful way of creating views, essentially, of your content. Now that content is much better presented or much better available if it stands on its own route, which makes it inherently detached from the view that you're getting. On top of that, I think the client server is not the right analogy. It's more like a terminal, where you also essentially download a program each time, except if you're cached. So there's a lot of advantages in it. Now, the fact that the hashtag has been used for history control and back button handling and stuff like that, I think this is mainly perhaps a limitation of the browsers that prompts all of this, which should essentially don't break the back button. If we could have an app mode in the browser or something like that, then the whole model of the single page interface starts to stand on its own, where you can download the application, which is JavaScript, you can download each views, you can download JSON, XML, whatever, on different resources, and you can get different views. You know, HTML is just one view of a resource. You could have the same data viewed as JSON or viewed as XML, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Yeah. So I think it's here to stay in a way. Now there are some limitation hacks into it, but you know, going forward means also bypassing the limitation, which is the reason why we're here in the first place, right? JavaScript grew up. Yeah. REST made its way, you know, over other methods like SOAP or whatever that don't use the inherent style of HTTP. So
yeah. I think for me though, to really be doing REST, I mean, REST is a horribly abused term. And I think to really be doing REST, you need to be using Hypermedia as the driver of that client state. So you need to be bringing links back, and you need to be following those links.
Can you elaborate a bit about what we call the Hypermedia?
So take HTML. HTML has when you retrieve it, there are a bunch of links.
Yes.
Okay, so there's different types of links. There's embedded links, like a link to a style sheet or a link to images, which the browser knows it can just automatically go and retrieve
Like
and
the XSLT
augment.
for XML, for instance.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you download it, not many people do that anymore, but yeah, it is feasible, and it is a very interesting example of that, because there it's obvious that you're truly bringing down XML content, and XSLT is providing your style sheet, your UI, and that's the way the browser originally worked. You were bringing content down, right?
But I think one key part that's missing here is saying UI, because as we've seen with CSS and HTML and the elimination and banishment of the font tag and such styling tags, is that those concerns were meshed together in an HTML document, and now
right.
they've become separated. And I think moving forward, probably HTML is just the end product, because probably you're going to load some mustache template or Haml or whatever the browser can process, and mixing that with that data to mash it up.
But isn't the logical conclusion that we don't need HTML anymore? I mean, why can't the browser just download the JavaScript and be a JavaScript runtime engine? Why did we even bring that HTML down?
I mean, it's going that way in a sense. I think one key reason why we're keeping it is that it's a good textual representation it's a good text format, which is going to endure. You know, it can't traverse the ages.
Yeah.
You can open it up in 2,000 years,
yeah.
and you're going to understand what's written there.
Right. But
versus if you load Canvas, for instance, where you could put a game, or you know, it's the same. It's a combat that Flash had with HTML. Mm-hmm. You know, I think keeping HTML brings a lot of value. Brings those links. You know, those links could exist there as pointers, as pointers to resource that the JavaScript could harness and follow.
You bring up a great example of Flash. Why is it okay to do a single-page app in JavaScript, but it was evil and not on the web to do it in Flash?
Because Flash is not packs everything in a compiled format. Whereas with JavaScript, one thing that we're seeing for mobile device, where it's not even that JavaScript is not installed. It's that it's not fast enough to load a single-page app, right? The response is going to be very bad, the response time, because you have limited resource to crunch it, to do everything. So essentially, you need to evolve a model where there's both, you know, progressive enhancement. Okay. You load a full app, and you can instrument it to a high level, and then once you have that, you can also have this application. This application needs to exist on both sides. The advantage doing it JavaScript is that with new server-side JS, you can put your application also on the server side, and then depending on the client, you either serve a page by page or a single page, depending on the user experience the client wants.
Yeah. I just see some similarities insofar as, like in Flash, you couldn't right-click, open a new link. And a lot of JavaScript-driven apps, you can't right-click and open in a new tab.
Well,
right?
that's because of the way it's engineered currently.
Yeah.
You just need to address that.
Right, and I think that is one thing that they addressed in one of the later versions of Silverlight. They had this notion of deep linking and the ability for somebody to create a link, to be able to basically paste a link in a browser. It would open the Silverlight app and then
to the right place
and go to right place. Mm-hmm. And I think as long as those rules are stuck to, I think we'll probably be okay. But I just see there's a slippery slope if we're not careful and we start to forget about some of the guiding principles that has made the web as successful as it is today.
On this, I totally agree. I mean, we need to be aware of those. We need to present stuff that is standalone, able to work without JavaScript, for instance, and now mix those two together to create an experience that is valid both ways, right?
Yeah.
I think it wraps it pretty much.
Yeah, we have consensus.
Yeah, it's interesting times ahead.
Yeah.
So it was a pleasure listening to you guys, and hope we have other great conversations.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.